outside more. I've taken on a new job at CU Boulder that has a lot of responsibility, and it's just like way too much work to do all the time, and I'll just never get it done. So it's helpful sometimes when she's in here and will like paw at me or whine like, okay, I need to take a break and go outside, and it just helps give perspective to get away from my workspace where I spend so much time and enjoy a moment with my sweet little doggy. So the way that I've done this in like group format that seems to work pretty well is to pass it off to somebody so that there's no like confusion about who goes next until we're all done. So I will pass it off to Julia.
I was hoping you'd say me because my dog's getting impatient and she wants to go. So I would say also my dog has been really helpful during COVID, just because, like you said, having to walk her and knowing when to take breaks and forcing myself to get out of the house when I'm feeling really down. So this is Daisy.
Oh,
She's a 70-pound German Shepherd, so she definitely likes to go on walks and move her legs, and yeah. And I guess I will pass it to Bev.
Okay, so I actually remembered what to bring. So this is my journal. I became a journaler COVID, and it's just been a lifesaver. Also, I would throw up my phone because I became a podcast junkie, and they've just been invaluable in helping me to get through this.
Oh, that's awesome, Bev. Maybe you could, at some point today, post 1 or 2 links of your favorite podcasts that you've been listening to, because I'm in a podcast rut, and I would love some inspiration.
Oh, I'd love to share.
Oh, Bev, would you?
I will pass it on to Nick.
Hi, everybody. So my inspiration early on in the pandemic, the CPC team knows this. I started doing all my meetings and stuff in my backyard. And then I just started to plant stuff. And so everybody talked about their gardens a lot. I think a lot of people talked about their gardens on the first day. And for me, I just planted everything, like every available space outside. And so even some other spaces. And so this is a habanero plant that I've been fostering. And at first it had no habaneros on it. And now it has like 12. I don't know if you guys can see that. Mm-hmm. There's one little guy right here. So I'm excited about, because I love spicy things and I love gardening. So there you go.
What would it take, Nick, for you to eat one of those live on this call at some point today?
I'll do it tomorrow or today. Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. Well,
after the break, we can do it.
All right. I'll hold you to it.
All right. I'm going to hand it off to Melanie.
Hey guys, so not only with the COVID, I also was going through a divorce. So what helped me through was my tequila.
Yeah.
Lots of it with lemon. Sometimes it was just straight. Also, I got through it with my friends and family, got closer with my kids. We started a walking routine. We just got closer, had a lot of time. So I will hand it off to Lisa.
Hi guys, so I drank wine all the time, as everybody knows at CPC, but I became a whiskey drinker. Just being home, remote learning, it was nice to just sit and enjoy a nice drink with my husband, and then my garden. my garden definitely was my piece during the day. And then seeing things grow, I'm like, Nick, I planted everything that I don't know what to do with. So and then it froze last night. So like my babies died. So I'm pretty sad about a lot of that. But that was what kept me, or has kept me sane, whiskey and gardening. And then I will pass it off to, let me see. Where's Holly? Is Holly on?
Looks like it. Holly, are you there?
Try again.
All right, maybe we'll come back to Holly in a moment. How about somebody else?
Sally.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. I'm still thinking. Gosh, it's not a lot has changed with me. I've been working the whole time at work. I think the only thing that I really liked about this COVID stuff is that my husband doesn't want to be going to Denver all the time anymore. And the traffic and all that, it just makes me nervous. So I've just been enjoying just being here at home in Burlington. So that's what's been keeping me. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Amy.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm on an old computer that has funky things. It's good to see everyone virtually, by the way. Let's see, first, in the beginning of it, it was having my kids home because they're absolutely hilarious and just entertaining. And then this summer, I finally finished my Pilates certification. Actually, I just finished it Monday. So it's been almost 2 years to get this certification through several injuries, and Pilates is supposed to like kind of be rehab for injuries, and my injuries were not related to Pilates, so it was just ironic, but I finally finished it. It was 500 hours. So that's kept me very distracted this summer. And I will call on Shania. Am I saying your name right? Okay, I love your name.
Thanks. So I'm sure you guys seen my dog earlier. That wasn't really planned, but I was gonna say probably my fiance, which is cheesy, I know. But not only with COVID, but we are planning our wedding, and so like with my freaking out over everything, he's been really helpful to keep me grounded. Trying to see who all is on. Ashley, you want to go?
Sure, I'd be happy to go. So I brought my coffee because that has, it's been nice to start my mornings with a coffee and not a commute. And then of course I'll follow the trend with the dog, if you can see her right here. And this is Lou, and she is always with me, like wherever I am in the house, which has been really, really nice. All right, I will pass it off to Brianna.
I think maybe both of you are on mute.
I'm on mute, sorry. Brianna said that her microphone isn't working right now. She said in the chat, my family, my fiance, and coworkers have been my rock through all this. We had to postpone our wedding, and working in the medical clinic has had its challenges during these difficult times. My doggos and taking my mountain bike has been my mental savior. Thank you, Brianna.
Thanks for translating, Ashley, although that would have been fun to watch her act out charade style if she doesn't have a microphone. I don't know how you could pick somebody, Brianna, so Ashley, would you pick somebody next?
Sure. Let's see who else needs to go. I think Susan, I will pass it off to you.
Yeah, hi. I was going to say my husband and my kids, and neither of them want to come on screen to me. But I think we've just, really, my kids I have a teenager starting high school and one starting middle school, and, starting to get just that extra time with them that you start to not have as much as they get older. I think we've, had a lot of fun, and that's been really good. And my husband has just been super supportive with working from home because his job is a little more flexible. And so, yeah, those are the two really positive things. So. Is there anyone else that needs to go?
I'll go real quick.
Okay,
I'm
sorry, I can't.
No, it's okay. I'm Tammy Kreitz, and since this whole thing, I have been putting in lots more hours at work. So my life has been a little different. Hardly been at home. So when I do get home, I appreciate being with my kiddos and family. They're all home. They've been home a lot more because they've been out. Well, they were out since spring break. They didn't go to school, and then they got back to school, and then they were in quarantine for 2 weeks. So they've been home lots, but I haven't been. So, but they've been very supportive, and my husband and kids have got me through. So.
Let's see, maybe I think Julia still needs to go, and Steph, and then we could try Holly again.
So
yeah, I can jump in also. Julia number 2, I bet, right?
Yeah.
We should have that down. It was really a misstep to hire someone with the same name that I have, but we're still working through it. I thought that was an exclusion immediately, but she made it through. Yeah, so I appreciate this activity and exercise. Taking a minute and thinking about the gratitudes has been super helpful, and there are many kind of strange, unexpected silver linings, I would say, through this time. A lot of the things everyone else has mentioned for sure. So I just brought a new running shoe, and I don't at all consider myself a runner. I'm not a runner, but I jog for activity and exercise. One of the things I do enjoy doing. And similarly, just getting outside has been probably, a great sanity break and reset for me, and doing it on my own and with my spouse and with neighbors. We had for a while at the early beginning times when I think kind of nobody, every hour of every day we were trying to figure out how to pass the hours. We started to go on a family walk in the evening with our neighbors, so that we'd put on masks and then we'd space out, and no one's driving around the streets of Denver anyway. So we'd walk down the middle of the street and stay away from one another, but get to enjoy company of other people. And call it we just kind of text, anyone want to go on a family walk this evening? And so just being outside and finding, still comforting ways to be with others has been very helpful. Oh, and so I should call on, let me see. I think I can do it. None of these people. Well, Steph.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Oh, so things, I can't bring you out there, so I'll just bring a picture. So this is what got me through, or getting me through, is our backyard and the table back there. You probably can't see it because my husband and kid are in the way. But really, we've spent so much time having meals and just hanging out on our patio table back there. We've eaten breakfast so many more times than we normally do out there. Dinners. It's allowed us to have my in-laws over for dinner because we can space them out and have plenty of space to have 2 tables and 2 of everything. To be able to get them out of independent living for a while and get them out and about. So yeah, it's really the backyard and that patio table area that's gotten us through, and to be able to see friends back there too throughout the summer. So it's been very helpful. And should we try Holly again?
I've just messaged her, so we'll see if she hops on.
All right. Well, if you can hear us, Holly, we're thinking about you. We'd love to hear from you, even if you put it in the chat or email Ashley or text her back. Yeah, thank you everyone for doing that. I think that you know, especially on Zoom, this is like the main way that many of us connect professionally and sometimes even socially. And that can just be like this pull to start getting to work right away because you're not sitting in the same space. And a lot of that small talk that normally happens before or after meetings just doesn't. So I've been trying to make it a practice to start most meetings like that, and especially reconnecting with you all. It's really nice to hear how everyone is doing, and also just like the diversity of experiences that the context of COVID has caused for all of us. I mean, I can hear the range of spending a lot of time in clinic, not being at home, and then spending all of your time at home and doing your work from there. And they both come with different sets of challenges, and I've just seen such a broad way in which we react to that. So I do appreciate everyone taking a moment to express some gratitude or positivity around the things that have been helpful during, you know, potentially the weirdest time of many of our lives. We've never experienced anything like this before. So thank you very much. It was a nice way to all come together and hear a little bit about something personal. So that was nice. Thank you. Is my screen still up? You guys can still see? Okay, great. So here's what I thought we could do today. We talked this over with the team and came up with this agenda where let's keep having some fun. We'll watch a little bit of movie clips that have some type of storyline that may play well with our models that we're talking about. We're gonna dive back into some of the motivational interviewing pieces, but with a real strong focus on how it applies to case mapping. And then we'll use that kind of like blending or weaving together these 2 frameworks that we have learned over the past few years with some examples from Oscar maps that you've created, or at least the way that they're inputted in Oscar. And then we'll have a chance to practice together. And then if you have, you know, I don't really have a scheduled space for questions about, you know, particular cases. So I think if you do, I think I pulled 3 different examples from Oscar. So that's probably a low probability that it's, you know, one of your examples or one that you really like to talk about. But if there are some, I think this would be a good space if we do want to save any time for just open-ended discussion or consultation around an example or 2 of somebody that you're working with. Okay, so we've done this before a little bit. We'll do it again. And what we're gonna do is gonna watch a short movie clip. And we're gonna think about it in the context of our frameworks. So just as a brief review and reminder, basically when we're listening to somebody's story, we're thinking about these 3 elements. What's going on in their world, or what is their context? What is that like for them? How do they feel or think about that? And then what are the behaviors connected to that? That part we've gotten really comfortable with. And then we also talk about the cycles that occur when these patterns start to emerge and take place. We've talked about the ways in which unhealthy behavior usually helps us get through tough experiences, especially when we're in tough contexts like we all are in right now, and so are participants. But they also create over time this new kind of row or a new set of contexts that create different experiences, different behaviors and cycles. So I'm going to spend a little bit time today just taking our normal BA case map and going one step further. It's like, okay, so let's talk about the cycles. We've all gotten pretty comfortable with that. How does that then generate new sets of context for people and kick off kind of a new storyline? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is, knowing that people's contexts don't always change a lot, which means that the way that they feel or their kind of patterns of experiencing things also doesn't change drastically. But what we're trying to do is help people adopt new behaviors, even though their context and experience might be the same, and how that could potentially relate to new cycles. So as we watch this movie clip and as we talk about different examples throughout today, let's also be thinking about not only this first layer that we've gotten really comfortable with, and I've seen so many great examples in Oscar, but then how that moves the storyline down the road, so to speak, and how ultimately we're trying to help people create these new behaviors that create new patterns, even though a lot of the context stuff is the same. All right, so let's give it a go. We'll do this first one together, and then we'll have a chance to do one or two of these in breakout rooms where you can pair up with somebody and have a chance to talk a little bit more one-on-one. So this is an example that I've seen a lot, and this is a funny depiction of it. So let's give it a go.
I'm gonna try to do everything by myself today. It should be fine, as long as everybody does what they're supposed to do, right? Have a good day, and all my homies wanna ride today. We got 4 minutes to get Ross to the vet, so I love you kids. Get out, get out. Emergency PTA meeting today at 5 o'clock. Will we see you there? I'll totally get a sitter on a Tuesday night. Yes, you can. You actually can. What do I have on the schedule today? You're super late for your marketing meeting. You have to tell me these things. I can't believe I'm going to be late for my first soccer practice. I'm sorry, okay? I'm trying. You're trying harder, dude. Good job. The bake sale. No BPA, no MSG, no BHA, no BHT, no sesame, no soy, and of course, no nuts or eggs or milk or butter or salt or sugar or wheat. No. What's that now? I'm so tired of trying to be this perfect mom. I'm done. You said everything I've ever felt about being a mom, but couldn't say. There's so many rules now. Don't punish your kids. Don't say no to your kids. We all work too damn hard trying to make our kids' lives amazing and magical. Their lives already are amazing and magical. Be bad moms. Oh, I'm in. The bad mom! Wendy!
All right, so there's a storyline that we've heard quite a bit. Oops. Okay, great. So let me change this. All right, let's just take a moment and kind of step through this in the way that we just described. And yeah, see how this plays out. So let's start filling in this first top row. What's the basic storyline that we're talking about in terms of what's going on for this person? What's her experience like? And what kind of behaviors does that create for her? And let me just say like a moment about participating in Zoom right now. I think that there will be some like awkward moments where more than one person starts talking at once. And I think we just have to accept that that's the way it is. It'd be a little bit easier if we were all in person, but I think our whole experience today will be better if we just, chime in. And if, you have to take a pause, then that's fine. But I don't think we need to raise hands or do anything like that.
Sam, I think she's overwhelmed, stressed out, and it becomes to the point where she starts drinking and being kind of negative towards the other PTA members.
Great. And then how would we describe the context for this person? Thank you, Holly. It's nice to hear from you. Glad your audio is working.
Someone who has multiple roles. So a parent, a full-time employee, and participant in PTA.
The other thing I noticed about her context is initially she was trying, you know, exceptionally hard to make everything happen, make everything perfect. So there was a ton of effort going into trying to hold all these balls in the air.
Interesting. That's right. So there's a couple ways that we can operate in this way. So we saw a couple of different like key behaviors that you picked on. One is this like breaking point that she reached where she starts drinking and being like, I am done with this. I am done trying to be the perfect mom and satisfy everybody. So let's just see what happens if we take that behavior and move it down to here. And then here, let's go with what, Julia just said. And let's just call it super momming. Just trying to take care of everything in that opening scene. Like, I'm just going to take care of everything today. Let's see how it goes. Okay, what was the other part about her experience? Like, she's also clearly overwhelmed, but why is she super momming so much? Like, what's her relationship with these busy roles?
A lot of the other moms don't work and they have ridiculously high expectations. So I think she's trying to fit in, but then when it seems impossible is when she turns to drinking.
Yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, let's get this drinking thing down here for a moment. Okay, why? So great, that's awesome. There are these like terrible expectations that these other moms are pushing on her, and they don't have the same context. Like they don't have the same pressure to contribute to the family income in the way that she does. So I'm like the super momming piece. Like how would we define that? Like, let's get a little more specific on that first. What are some of the things that she does that warrant us calling her a super mom?
Perfectionism.
Yeah, and how does that actually, what does that look like in action for her?
Maybe like not asking for help. Like, for example, she had said that she couldn't find a sitter on a Tuesday night. So maybe just like, I don't know how to narrow that down more.
Yeah, so that's one example of like saying yes to everything. Saying yes to that PTA meeting, even though it's going to create a lot of stress for her. I saw things like, making her kids really special lunches, cooking them really nice breakfasts, running them around after school to all their activities. Why is she doing all that? Is that out of a sense of pure obligation, or is there like something deeper there with her relationship with her kids? Do you get the sense that she likes her kids and that she likes being like some aspects of being a mom, or is that part not true for her? So yeah, one thing I would also put here, she's clearly really overwhelmed, but this super momming does not come out of just a place of like a negative emotion or like a negative space. That there's a lot of positivity here and love for her family and love for her kids, and that there's some aspects of this that she really enjoys being part of a mom and enjoys that responsibility, and that does lead to some of this super momming. other parts come out of it, out of this busy, being overly busy, these weird expectations that are getting pushed on her and feeling overwhelmed.
Wasn't she cheated on by her husband though?
Oh, you?
In the movie, she was cheated on by her husband or whatever.
It's been years since I've seen this movie, but I think that that's true. I think he did cheat on
I
her.
think that's one of the reasons why she's trying to do all the things that she is trying to do, because she is trying to avoid that emotional letdown. So she's putting all her time and energy into everything, and then she finally breaks.
And she finally breaks. Right. So let's move on to that part. So she's got a busy mom, lots of expectations on her. She does also have a very unhelpful partner through all of this. She's overwhelmed, but she does have a lot of love for her kids. She ends up in this practice of constantly taking care of her kids and overextending herself. So in the short term, like, how is this super momming reacting with her love? Does she feel, does her love like increase or feel satisfied when she does all these things for her kids, or does this experience get harder?
I think it's creating more of a void. Like she's trying to fill something up, but it's bottomless.
She can never keep up with everything. Right? The first thing that happens though, when she, gets up extra early to make that really nice breakfast for her kids and pack that like lunch that is very specific to their dietary preferences, like at first that feels good. It's like she's taking care of her responsibilities and living up to her values as a mom. So there's like both this like combination of overwhelm and love create this pressure to do things. And when she does them, like there's a part of her that feels really good about that. What you're talking about though, Amy, is like this void that comes afterwards. So at first this feels good, but the overwhelm always comes back. And over time, you can see her like really starting to get run down and ragged. So that's where I would probably put this void piece. And then in the context of her unhelpful, he's even worse than that, her husband, she gets to like this breaking point. So at first, like especially the way it's depicted in the movie is like, yeah, she's, she has all this stuff going on. She is really overwhelmed, but she does a lot of this activity out of love for her kids. And in general, that like sustains her for some period of time. But after a while, it just becomes too much for her. And then she's in this really kind of dark place where one, she's she's got way too much to do. It's also kind of shaped their relationship with her husband, where he basically is off the hook all the time, is not helpful. And then she reaches this breaking point where she's done with that. This is where she really like kind of snaps, and you really see a different set of behaviors from her that you haven't seen otherwise in the film, where she's just like, all right, this is like full on me time, where she starts drinking and partying. She doesn't care about her relationship with these PTA moms. And again, like, let's think about, like, I'm at the breaking point. There's a lot of anger here for her. How does being rude or drinking relate to this experience? What's the effect of, hanging out with her two really good friends and then basically giving the finger to these PTA moms? How does that make her feel immediately when she does these things?
It probably feels good. It feels like a relief.
Huge relief. I mean, it just like warms my heart to see her like sitting in a bar drinking with her friends and not at home, because she's just being stretched so thin and has way too many responsibilities. So at first she finds relief, and here's where I actually can't remember the movie, so we can either think about what actually happens in this film, or we can just imagine, all right, so you're in this point of like, you've reached your breaking point, you kind of don't give an F anymore. So you're drinking, you're just popping off at people that challenge you. Over time, what's going to happen to her anger if she keeps acting in this way? Is this going to get better for her, or does this create more problems for her?
She stops making breakfast for her kids and they have to start doing everything for themselves. I mean, which isn't a bad thing because they're old enough to do it, but at the same time, she breaks that cycle there of being the mom part for them.
She takes a major step back. And you can see that either in examples like you just described, Melanie, where she's not making breakfast in the same way. She's also stepping back from this relationship that she has with her kid's school and the people that are in it. Some of those things may totally be healthy, absolutely. We're starting to see, though, this, this reckoning or conflict with this part. The more she steps back, the more conflict that's going to create for herself around her own values that she has around being a mom and being a partner to some extent. Okay, well, let's play it out a little bit more. So she's, so now we're in a little bit more of an extreme pattern here where she's getting through each day, but she's drinking most nights. She's potentially not, I wouldn't say damaging relationships, but the relationships are changing a lot, both with her husband and with these other moms. What kind of new context does that create for her?
She was like her job was suffering. She wasn't going to work.
And her kids were suffering because she wasn't giving them as much attention.
I'm sorry, just I'm like more curious than anything. Is that what actually happens in the film, or are you imagining what would happen?
That's what happens.
Oh, perfect, great. Well then, I was working on this last night. I'm like, I think I should probably watch this movie, but then it was like almost midnight. I'm like, I can't stay up any longer and keep going. So I did tell my wife this morning, it's like, we have to watch this Bad Moms movie again because we watched it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. All right.
I think
so,
there's kind of a hint of that. I mean, I think there's a scene where in the clip that showed that she like missed a meeting and things like that.
So as she has work problems, she just like, I mean, rightfully so, she's like stepping back. This is not sustainable. So we're not like criticizing her, judging for this. We're telling this story. If we were talking to her, we'd have a ton of empathy for all of this. What happens to the way she feels, the way she thinks when she has more and more work problems, she's missing meetings, the kids start having more problems. How's that going to hit her emotionally, mentally?
I'm guessing she's going to start feeling guilty.
Have you seen the movie, Beth?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so we're together here and not really knowing. I would guess that she would feel guilty about some of these things. For those of you that have seen the film, how does she actually react as this stuff starts to crumble?
She starts to realize, like almost like she takes a step back and looks at the big picture.
She starts to like become overwhelmed again because now she's having to balance her kids, trying to do with no job, and her friends at this point because her friends were pretty involved in them going out all the time, and so I think she's overwhelmed again.
Great. Okay, perfect. So yeah, you can see like this is starting this overwhelm then like ultimately is leading to a new perspective, it's also sounding like. So you can see how there's this progression, which like this sounds pretty normal and I wouldn't say benign, but this is, we're not surprised to hear this story, especially for moms with young kids. And it's not uncommon to hear this part, but as we start to move down here, you can see that things get more serious, so to speak. As this cycle operates for longer, you just have to admire the way that she's valiantly trying to exist, operating on these values of having too much to do, but loving her kids so much. And at first, like, I think this is true for a lot of young parents. It's like you just kind of like go as hard as you can. And then you realize that like, there's this void that gets created that you can never keep up with all the tasks that you need to do to take care of your kids and to take care of your job or profession or the other responsibilities you have. So you end up in this, which is also not terribly uncommon, but it's definitely a step up in severity after this cycle has been operating for a long time, because that's what these cycles do. They get you through the end of the day, but then it creates this debt almost. And that debt starts to pile up so that eventually you reach this kind of breaking point. And then once you reach that breaking point, your behavior starts to shift pretty dramatically. And this is where we really see, again, like a intensifying of unhealthy behavior. Like most of us wouldn't, especially from our role as health navigators, we're not going to talk about supermomming too much as a behavior to really change all that much, except for the ways in which it makes it hard to fit in healthy things like diet and exercise. When you reach this breaking point though, and you're just like surviving now, not just like getting through the day and they're hard, but now you're just surviving. So I have to like drink at the end of the day because I'm at such at this breaking point. That's where we really start to see more problems and behaviors that rise to our attention as people involved in other people's healthcare. So this drinking creates this relief, and also this like enables this pattern to step back and almost forces it, where if you are doing things like drinking a lot, then you literally might have hangovers that cause you to, have problems, especially in the morning. But this, there's various ways. It doesn't have to be drinking here. There's other behaviors that start to set in that function in this way to help people get some relief from how difficult things are. And as we start to check out, typically our context gets more challenging. And what our job is to do is to like help people like see this story so that when they're feeling really stuck with the same type of experience and it's getting worse, we have a chance to offer them a new perspective, both by doing this, kind of case mapping, but also in our conversations of helping people understand this cycle. And ultimately, even though we're in a tough spot and we have an even tougher context than when we started, our goal is to help people engage in new behaviors that are healthier and that still map onto their values as much as possible. So again, I guess I'm curious to see how the movie actually plays out. But for those of you that haven't seen the film, what seem like some candidate behaviors that might be helpful given everything we know about her context and the buildup that we've had to this point?
I think she found support.
And who's that from?
From a different relationship.
Does she find a new partner?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can very much look like, ending unhealthy relationships like the one with her husband certainly is. And there's other ways that people get new support here. Either from the film or just ideas that might be helpful for her. What else would we be thinking about?
I was thinking of maybe some opportunity to replace some of the maladaptive behaviors with something else.
What did you have in mind, Julia?
Well, maybe she could, go for a walk with friends instead of going to the bar and drinking. It would be up to the person, of course, what they thought might be something they had an interest in modifying.
Lovely. Okay, so let's just take these two examples that would definitely be helpful to talk through with her. And here, when we have this like purple box, we're talking about a healthy behavior here. And this is the hard part, right? This is the behavior that is not totally consistent with the emotion or with the experience. When we feel guilty and overwhelmed, we either tend to shut down or we go into this hyperdrive mode when we're overwhelmed to try to get everything done. So getting more support, this is actually going to create a little bit more of a problem for her at first. When you do these healthy behaviors, you have to get over the hump. So here, like, what could be the hard part that she has to conquer first before she gets the benefit of asking for more support?
Maybe that she needs to put herself first above helping everyone else.
Right. So there's like a little bit of, geez. It's not, I mean, admitting isn't really the right word here, but it's like coming to terms with the reality that I can't do everything by myself. I can't manage a full-time career and be the primary parent for 2 young kids and stay sane through all of that. So there's like this, you know, these expectations are coming from these moms. They're probably coming from other places that keep her so overwhelmed. And then I think especially for moms who are also working and the primary caretakers, there is this like larger expectation that you can do it all. So there involves this confrontation with this like standard that gets set. So this is going to be hard. When we advocate for her to get more support, we're also going to know that healthy behaviors do not fit with the experience right away. The path of least resistance for her almost is to supermom it through all this. Then she doesn't have to ask for help. She doesn't have to have this like tough emotional moment of saying, I'm really struggling. This is hard for me. And she gets to, you know, somewhat probably smugly pat herself on the back at the end of the day and say, look what I did. I did all this stuff. So this is going to be hard at first. Obviously, though, that would be really helpful for her, and she absolutely deserves it too.
She finally let go of her husband and trying to hold on to him and accepted that the relationship was over.
It's a really good way to put it. These steps require a good dose of acceptance of realities that are hard to accept. Like, my husband is no longer the partner I thought he would be. How about this? What's going to be hard for her at first with walking with friends? I totally agree. It's a good idea. And we could just say any non-drinking time with your friends or any type of outdoor exercisey things. Why would those be hard for her?
She's going to have to create new pathways in her brain to make associations that is as exciting as going to happy hour, or like it feels as good as going to the bar.
Awesome. That's a huge part of it. Practically, what is she going to have to do? Relates to this piece, but if she's out walking with friends, who's home with the kids or who's taking care of things? Like, there's this practical problem solving she's going to do. If she's truly going to carve out more time for positive social interactions or for exercise, I mean, substitute anything in here: self-care, education, hobbies, doing spiritual activities, like anything that we put in here for her is probably not going to be as exciting as drinking, and is probably going to require some problem solving on her end to figure out how she can release herself from her normal routine, which involves her running back to back all day to take care of everything. All right. Okay, cool. Thanks for doing that with me. We've never quite spent that much time like really kind of breaking things down and including multiple different themes. We definitely could have like moved some things around here, but we can see now how once we lay all this stuff out, how we get to a pretty thorough understanding of what's going on for her initially, how that intensified here in the second row, and how in this third row, we have the opportunity to start creating new patterns for her. We know though that that's going to be hard. Even though these are like the, healthy or right things to do, these are going to be the types of recommendations we're likely to make. We can anticipate that the next part of the conversation is actually going to be difficult because there has to be this acceptance of tough realities, admitting a need for help, admitting you're not on board with other people's expectations. And then as we try to carve out more time for healthy activities, they're probably not as exciting or like immediately gratifying as drinking or watching TV or playing games. And often they require a little bit more practical problem solving. So it's like we have more resistance there. We're not doing the path of least resistance anymore, which is what the emotion wants us to do. We're creating something new, and that is very likely to be healthy, but also not easy, especially at the beginning. All right, any other questions or comments about this before we move on to the next part? Well, I'm having like this nostalgic experience. I took some classes when I was an undergrad that were writing about film, both in two different languages. So we spent a lot of time like dissecting film, and this is like totally take me back. And I wish I had this framework in my head back then to talk about all those great movies that I watched in the early aughts while I was in school. Okay, let's do another one. This time we are going to break out into groups and do this. But first we'll watch the whole clip together. And then Ashley, are you up for breaking everybody out?
Yes, I've got it set so there's at least 2 health navigators per group with some supervisors on top of that.
I mean, what do we have? 16 people?
We've got, do you want me to just do groups of 2 instead?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the idea of doing groups of 4 where we each could break out into a group, or we could do 8 groups of 2. Just
right now I've got three groups of 4 and 1 group of 3.
Would you just a quick thumbs up if you'd rather have bigger group with one of the supervisors in each, or smaller groups like 2-on or 1-on-1s, or maybe groups of 3? All right, looks like 4 groups. 4 groups went out. Is that too hard to do, Ashley?
I have it. It's all set.
You're a wizard. Okay, well in that case, I would say Nick, Steph, and Ashley, you could help guide the discussion and maybe take some notes so that we can build one of these together again after we all come back. So first, let's watch the clip, and then we'll reorient to the task, and then we'll break out. Try to get everything set up. I couldn't download this one, so we're on YouTube.
What the? Woo! Something died in here. Hello? Door?
You hear about the cable? The Cinemax went out 2 weeks ago. The sports are all kind of fuzzy.
Door? Oh my God! Oh my God, it's so good to see you. Give me your cuddly little rascal. Oh, no, I'm good. I mean, it's not necessary.
Hulk, you know my friends, Meek and Korg, right?
Hey,
guys.
Long time no see. Beers on the bucket. Feel free to log into the Wi-Fi. No password, obviously. Oh, he's back. That kid on the TV just called me a dickhead again.
Noob Master.
Yeah, Noob Master 69. Called me a dickhead.
Noob Master, hey, Thor again. You know, the God of Thunder? Listen, buddy, if you don't log off this game immediately, I'm gonna fly over to your house, come down to that basement you're hiding in, rip off your arms, and shove them up your butt. Oh, that's right. Let's go cry to your father, you little weasel. Thank you, Thor. Let me know if he bothers you again, okay? Thank you very much. I will. So, you guys want a drink? What are we drinking? Like beer, tequila, all sorts of things. Buddy, you all right? Yes, I'm fine. Why? Don't I look all right?
You look like melted ice cream.
So what's up? Just here for a hangover.
We need your help. There might be a chance we could fix everything.
Well, like the cable? Because that's been driving me bananas for weeks.
Like Thanos.
Say that.
Yeah, we don't actually say that name in here.
Please take your hand off me. Now, I know that guy might scare you. Why would I be scared of that guy? I'm the one who killed that guy, remember? Anyone else here killed that guy? Nope. Didn't think so. Cool, ready to tell everybody who chopped Thanos' big head off? Stormbreaker? Oh, who was swinging Stormbreaker?
I get it. You're in a rough spot. Okay, I've been there myself. You want to know who helped me out of it?
Was it Tasha?
It was you. You helped me.
Why did you ask the Asgardians down there how much my help is worth? The ones that are left, anyway.
I think we could bring them back.
Stop, Jay. I know you think I'm down there wallowing in my own self-pity, waiting to be rescued and saved, but I'm fine, okay? We're fine, aren't we?
No, we're good here, mate.
So, whatever it is that you're offering, we're not into it. Don't care, couldn't care less. Goodbye.
We need you, pal.
There's beer on the ship.
What kind?
All right. Apologies if some people haven't seen that movie and there's any spoilers in there.
A family vacation in a Verbo means leaving all the craziness behind.
Okay. So let's do the breakouts. Given that this is like definitely like more complex than the way that we usually do things, let me just give you a little bit of guidance. Let's put drinking here in the first behavior, and then like extreme isolation right here as the second behavior, and then see how you can do trying to talk through the rest of this, and then we'll all come together and build this back out. Any questions about what our goal is? Okay, let's plan for, it'll be a little fast, but how about 3 minutes as a breakout group? We might not get through the whole thing, but pick somewhere on here to start to build out, and then we'll build the whole thing out together.
All right, so I'll break everyone out right now into groups and we'll reconvene in 3 minutes. All right, so you should have been invited to join a breakout group.
I could agree with that one.
Yeah, he does seem afraid. Something obviously bad happened and he's afraid.
And maybe like feels defeated.
Definitely. I think he's in a very self-loathing mode and doesn't seem to want to get out of it until they offered him beer on the ship. That seemed to be the only motivation.
Yeah.
So Brianna, we can see your message. So you can feel free to type in any of your messages, any of your comments.
Ashley, have you seen this movie?
I have not seen this movie.
None of us have.
So you guys were saying that for the behavior for drinking, you were saying that his feelings of afraid sort of led him to do that. That was part of the feeling box.
Yeah, afraid and like defeated.
Awesome.
And maybe overwhelmed. I mean, I don't know what happened, what he did, or what brought him to this point, but I think, yeah, he's definitely afraid of something maybe, or I don't know, overwhelmed.
Awesome. And then the context, I know there's not much about the context that we know, but what do you think might have led to those feelings of being afraid or overwhelmed?
Like maybe someone beat him at something.
Yeah, so maybe he
lost a battle, or he lost somebody, hurt somebody close to him, or something that made him just sort of end up wherever he was.
Right. Okay, awesome. So you have the first row there, and then the other behavior is extreme isolation. So he starts to, drink and just stay inside with his friends and play video games. What do you guys think are some of the feelings that led to that?
I think fear would maybe play in that again. And not wanting to go back. Obviously, there was something there that he didn't want to confront. He wasn't ready to change, to go back.
I think we're coming to the end of our 3 minutes already.
Okay,
so
that was quick.
I know, it was super quick. Maybe we'll give it another like 30 seconds or so. And so what do you think might have been part of the context that led to those feelings?
Maybe sadness. I don't know if somebody that he really cared about died or what happened, but he seems kind of like lost and in a dark place. Maybe he's sad. I don't know. Just a guess.
Cool. All right, well, I'm gonna bring everyone back together to honor Sam's 3 minutes. So we'll join the larger group. Thanks, guys. Oh, I think everyone else will be joining us in like 30 seconds, I think.
Oh.
I'm still getting the hang of the Zoom breakout groups. But we're now in the larger meeting group right now. Go.
Hey, we're all back. I think that was maybe a little rushed. We did not get very. So I
I
didn't.
know you said 3 minutes, Sam. I was like,
Oh yeah,
you
no,
said 3 minutes?
I'm owning that totally. No, yeah, I said 3 minutes.
I know.
don't.
I was like, we're like halfway through this, but we'll go to the. Maybe I'll give you the host. The host.
Well, I wonder. That was my fault for thinking we would go faster than we did. I think maybe we could do another 3 minutes and then finish this off if everybody's up for that.
Okay, cool. I'll send you guys back out into your rooms. 3 more minutes.
This is fun. This is like getting up in a room and changing chairs. Like that's the closest.
I feel like I should get up. Like I don't get the benefit of actually getting up.
All right, here we go. You'll have to all join the room again.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so just as a quick review, we had for drinking, he was feeling overwhelmed, afraid, lost, defeated, and a lot of that was due to the battle that he had before then. And then he put himself into extreme isolation because he was feeling this sense of sadness, and I think someone else said another feeling.
Probably like self-loathing almost.
Great. And the context behind that sadness and self-loathing, what do you think that context was?
Maybe come from his current situation. He was drinking. He wasn't, obviously his situation had changed. And so that sort of perpetuated more isolation.
Right. Right. So yeah, he was, staying in his basement the whole time. It was very opposite from what he had going on in the battle. So he's sort of trying to protect himself now. So with these cycles that we have for drinking, at first, how does drinking really make him feel?
At first, probably better.
Right? It probably helps him cope with that at first, and it makes him feel really good in the moment. But then over the long term, how does that make him feel?
Probably not great. His friend commented on his appearance and that he was a little softer than he used to be, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
So that he's probably not feeling good physically and then emotionally about that, maybe.
Right. Right. And then how about for extreme isolation? That sort of follows a similar cycle, huh? Where being isolated makes him feel safe at first because he doesn't have to deal with any of the forces outside of his little basement. But that sort of starts, we sort of start to see that change when he maybe creates a new behavior when his friend comes and suggests or asks him to help him out with fighting this force that they have. It's so weird talking about this without knowing what it is.
Right.
Like we're probably way off.
So what do you think his final behavior is? What do you think he could do to sort of balance out this, drinking and extreme isolation?
Like he joins his friend.
That's what this is.
Yeah. Starts to fight whatever they're fighting.
That's probably a
So I
good.
guess like faces his problem.
Yeah, he's gonna have to confront that. Where would that fall in the? Would that be in the?
Brianna says he becomes defensive to reassure himself and his feelings. Yep, overcomes his fear and joins his social group. All right, it has been over 3 minutes again, so I'm going to join us one more time and we'll see if that's enough time for everyone.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. All right, everyone should be joining us in just a moment. So this is definitely a new way of looking at it with many different layers. Susan, we usually just, with our health navigators, have, you know, one context, one feeling, and one behavior, and we're making this a little more complex.
Okay.
Can we have 3 more minutes? No, I'm just. I had to go through all the Avengers from, you know, the first Avenger, you know, Iron Man through like Endgame. So
You got through that in 6 minutes?
I'm just kidding.
I do realize that I think I made another mistake there in assuming more people had seen that than actually had. But I think, you know, maybe it's just like, you know, the young boy in us, Nick, that loved all those comic books and can't stand to miss the movies when they come out. But even without knowing the film, like, you know, that's the power of good filmmaking, is that you don't need to know the whole story to get like the emotional tone and the bigger picture here.
Yeah, it works not knowing any of it, actually, I think.
But you should see the movies. I can send you a list of all the Marvel movies you need to see.
And the
To
order
get-
in which to watch
Put it
them
in
in?
Yeah, the order.
Yes,
I need the
and-
order. Put it in the chat.
All right, I'm just gonna finish up one more note on ours. Before share anything, I wonder if we could just have each group. Actually, I guess we got 3, so we have 4 groups. We have the group that that I was with. I wonder if the other 3 groups might take a pass at describing each of the lines. So like maybe Ashley, you and your group could go first and talk about the first line. Nick, you and your group could go next and talk about the second line. And then Steph, you and your group could talk about the third line. And then our group will then report based on what we heard.
Sounds good. Okay, let's see. I was with Brianna, Holly, and Shania, and Susan. Any of you guys want to take a stab at it, or do you want me to summarize our conversation? All right, I'm happy to summarize. So in that first line, the behavior was drinking. For that feeling, we said that he was feeling afraid, overwhelmed, maybe lost or defeated. And a lot of that revolved around the context that happened before, which was what we assumed was this big battle.
Awesome. And then how did the, like, what's the function of the beer drinking? Like when I'm thinking about cycles, I'm always asking 2 questions. How does it help right away? And then what complications or problems exist next?
That's right. So for the cycle, we said that it made him feel, you know, like he could, it made him feel relaxed, less stressed. He could sort of curl up into his own little hole there with his beer. So at first it made him feel good. And then that sort of, led to a spiral, and could be really negative for the long term.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump on share screen and then jump off. Julia, or Lisa, do you want to just report on how ours was very consistent with what you just said and you did with your group, Ashley. Julia, or Lisa, do you want to walk through how that maps onto what we created?
Yeah, basically the same. Well, I've never watched the movie, so just what I got was, that we just kind of talked through it, that he was drinking a lot of beer. He had a loss. He was experiencing the depression and the grief. And in the short term, it was numbing the cycle. It was numbing the depression, the grief, and numbing out the loss. But in the long term, he started to look like melted ice cream.
It's not just like looking like melted ice cream. It's like clearly his body is different from all the, the dietary change in the beer drinking, but also his whole attitude and spirit has gone from like this chiseled, strong warrior god to what you saw. Awesome. Thank you. Nick, do you want to take the next line? Or Nick's group, actually. If somebody else wants to talk besides Nick, that would be great. But Nick, we always love hearing from you too.
Yeah, so I think it's a social isolation line. Is that the one?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Melanie or Amy, did you guys kind of want to talk through that?
So I think, the context was that he had an opportunity to stop the guy. So he was feeling overwhelmed, his experience, because he didn't do it. So the behavior was that he let go of himself, threw himself into the beer and his friends. So he wouldn't have to feel any of the emotions from not taking care of the bad guy and letting people down.
Awesome. Great. And then for the cycle part, like how does that, like that kind of feeling let down, and the way he responds to that like initial opportunity to like rejoin the team, how does that social isolation help him? Like what's the benefit to the social isolation at first? And then how does it create more problems?
So it gave him comfort at first because he was able to just kind of let go of himself. But then when the guy came back and kind of explained that they needed him, and then he started seeing his friends, then he started realizing this isn't for me. I could do better.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, definitely. I echo Melanie, and I think also that, it's basically him avoiding the fact that, he doesn't want to have to deal with the fact that he failed. And going back would mean that there's still work to do. Yes, do it.
Well, Nick, if I know you're a fan of these movies, if you want a more in-depth analysis chance right here for all of us to enjoy, you can you take it another step further.
Well, and I was thinking, this is where my head went. I was like, okay, in the longer term, right, he's going to get more and more unhealthy, but he's immortal, so he's not going to die. So what's the message here? No, just kidding.
It's an interesting thought experiment right there. It's like, how far could he take this beer drinking and pizza eating? How strong is that heart really in all those arteries?
But maybe like, he's got such a talent, he's such a superhero that he can help out the team. And by continuing to social isolate himself, he's not, lending his talents or giving his full self to the world, being his better self essentially by social isolating.
Totally. Yeah, we came up with some similar ideas. Julia Matamoros, I know your internet is bad, so fine to stay on mute or off video. But if you can, walk us through how we talked about the second line, that'd be great. Or Julia Weiss, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I can give it a try. I think again we're all on a similar theme here. So we I guess I'll start at the behavior. We see that this person's been isolating, you know, which looks to be a change for them, hanging out with friends and playing video games, eating pizza, drinking beer. And so we talked about that is that the positive short-term reinforcement is that it's fun, you know, he's having some fun, it's pleasant to escape, it's doing some, you know, kind of like just getaway indulgence kind of things, but then it's starting to lead to a change in a threatened relationships in this isolation. The context is, you know, these changes that are happening with withdrawal and isolation, depression, other behaviors, and the experience includes some kind of apathy, or maybe even more than apathy, like an intentional stepping away from responsibility, a breaking of participating in possibly some embarrassment.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. We were, you know, we just shorthand melted ice cream this context, and then we had the isolating fixed here already. So we were kind of keying in on this like super low energy, totally common in response to a loss. We thought maybe there's this added layer here, like isolating could come straight from this, depression, grief, apathy, but it could also come from the embarrassment that might come from totally being a different person, both in looks and your spirit. So that was a question that we had around that. All right, Steph, do your group want to take home the last line?
Sure. So I was in a group with Sally and Bev. Sally, Bev, either one of you want to talk through what we talked about for that third row?
No, you took the notes, so. And I've never seen this movie, so I'm somewhat lost.
I can check with Sally too, since she's seen the movie. Do you want to take a stab at it, or I can also go off the notes? Okay, so we were looking at and you two feel free to chime in because you guys know how silly my notes ended up being from this. So the behavior that we were looking at was his leaving isolation. And so at the end of that clip, Thor and Rocket were trying to entice him to leave isolation. And so, so one of the ways they got, or I guess the context for that was for him to leave isolation, he accepts the beer bribe, is what we were talking about, because beer is his happy place. So this was just kind of an interesting one that we were talking about, in that sometimes a negative behavior can slowly lead to a more positive behavior, and that kind of the isolation, we were looking at the isolation as the worst of the two behaviors, the drinking and the isolation. Deb, Sally, do you want to add on to that?
No, I think that's what we talked about.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Julia Matamoros, if you can, do you want to walk us through number 3? If not, that's okay too. All right, we'll just roll and hopefully she can still hear us and see. So yeah, we similarly, we described it as getting back on the horse, where he does agree to go back. And then, you know, you can either start there with a clear behavior that's an improvement, or you can, all right, well, what happens as this cycle starts to get set into motion and really crystallize? What kind of new context does that create? Well, we were really talking about how isolating threatens a couple of things. It can certainly threaten relationships, where if you're not, you know, responding to people's request to see you, or you're not doing the things you normally do, over time, you're going to have a less strong relationship with that person or that group of people. But there's also this way in which when you truly isolate like that, like the world around you can start to crumble. And, whether we're talking about the film where this is like literally the universe crumbling, or our own individual universes, when we are in these roles that we're in and we do step back in big ways, people will start to tell us that they need us and that there's ways in which the world starts to look different and starts not going great. So here is, it's like, how did he get back on the horse here? I love that you said like it was the beer bribe. I don't think that the beer would have been enough if this new perspective didn't start to take root a little bit. So we highlighted that in purple because like the Hulk tells this cool story about like, remember when I was in the dumps? Who got me out of it? It was you. So there's like evidence here that you can go to the darkest place and come back out. So these new behaviors, sometimes they can emerge from like the exact same experience, but oftentimes, and even if we look back at the other analysis we just did, this starts to shift a little bit. And that shift can occur from people's worlds. Doing this exercise right here in and of itself can help create that new perspective. And then the next behavior, like back on the horse is probably too generous for what he's about to do. So getting on the ship is a huge 180 from isolating. I don't care if he needs to drink a 6-pack while he's on the ship, eat 2 pizzas, play video games the whole time. Like this now gets into like, how do we coach people and what behaviors should we expect here that represent a difference? Small ones. So anything that breaks the isolation, bring the video game console, bring your tequila, bring your big bag of chips. Doesn't matter. So it's not, it's not exactly what we want, but we've taken the most important step of creating a new behavior, even though there's still a good amount of self-doubt and self-loathing happening here. All right. Well, thanks for doing that. We spent way more time doing this than I thought we would, which I think is really, I think is an awesome sign. I love how participatory everyone was. And it's, you'll see in a moment why it's useful to set it up in the way we just did, where we don't just do one of these, but we think about, all right, how does that lead to the next level of intensity as this cycle of understandably drinking beer because you had like one of the worst losses you can imagine and you feel so bent out of shape about it, makes perfect sense. But if we do that for too long, we're going to have not just this loss to deal with anymore, but we have this whole new set of problems. And that leads to more extreme behaviors into this kind of like breaking point almost. So we'll see why this is helpful as we progress. I think now is probably a good time to take a break. We've been going for a little over 90 minutes and we're at our halfway point. So how about we take a 11-minute break and come back at 10:15?
Sounds great.
Awesome. And then actually, Steph, Nick, and Ash, would you mind staying on for a second? Because I think
Sure.
we need to re-strategize on the agenda.
Sounds good.
All right. I miss you guys, and that was fun. I hope that this was consistent with what you were hoping for.
This is great.
Agreed.
It was like panicking, I guess, a little bit last night because these clips are hard to find. But I thought these would be 2 really good clips, and I was really excited. But I think I said in the initial emails, like, no, we're going to do 3 to 5 of these. And then I realized I did the clips last and build out this other stuff. And I realized like we could spend 15, 20 minutes on these. And I think if, the energy's there, we should just stick with that. So I'm wondering if you could just help me brainstorm what to do next. I have one more with the Chris Pratt clip that Ashley showed. My vote would probably be to skip this and get on to the rest of presentation. So I wanted to go through, here's what I was thinking, was doing this this quick review and then taking this slide and layering it on top of case mapping, and talking about how each of these different components relates to a different part of the case map, bringing in this like secondary cycle that gets set up here, and that's where the resistance starts to come in. So walking through that and then applying that to some examples that I found. This feels like a really nice flow and helps address the cycle request, and also integrating MI in this like kind of style framework more into the skill of doing the case mapping. And I have 3 examples here where, again, we don't need to do all 3, but essentially like prompting people to, where's the opportunity for empathy? Where's the opportunity for discrepancy, resistance, efficacy, and really focusing on the cycles in those conversations. That all feels like really good to me and like good flow, and I don't know if we'll have time to do that and then everything else. So I already thought that the traps were interesting, but we might not have time for them. And that'll be a little bit more didactic. I don't have as much interactivity built into that one. And then the last 2 things were the role plays, where we talked about doing group format, and then, you know, essentially same thing as working on building these out with these examples, and then the individual breakout role play. So I don't think we're gonna have time to do all those things. And I'm wondering if you have ideas about where to cut.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree that we don't need to do the Chris Pratt video, and that we'll move into the presentation. See, it would have been another like Marvel reference, but it's okay.
I know.
Right, because he got in shape for, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Sorry, couldn't help it. I do like this next piece of layering this into the true examples. I agree that we don't need to get into the traps, and I think that since it's more didactic, we could cover that like at another monthly call or something like that if we were looking for a topic.
Great. I'll just skirt over it really quickly then.
Yeah.
This is where I thought we would be breaking.
I really like focusing on what skill to use where in the case map. I really like that portion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very pointed.
So again, we can, honestly, going through that and the examples might take us to the end of the time. And then we would not be doing role plays. So I can either, we don't have to make it an either or. It could go a little bit faster through here and not have as much in depth, and then get practicing either in both, you know, or we could pick one of these and not both. I'm excited to do all of it or any of it.
I mean, we could always do role plays at a time when we don't have Sam. So, I mean, we could practice that a little bit more, do another session sometime to practice role plays. Although Sam's guidance is always super helpful.
I know.
You should focus on what would be.
Yeah, I feel like maybe doing the group role play, but not the breakouts, so that we can walk through how it applies, and I can provide some commentary. Okay.
I like that. Yep.
All right, great. So let's do Franny. I like that story a little bit better. Would one of you be willing to play Franny so I can do more active note taking and guidance?
I'm happy to play Franny.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for helping me think through that. And I would love to take a short break too.
Yeah, I gotta switch offices.
We'll pause. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay, great.
Okay.